Welcome back to more Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Last time we raced through the Fruit Cup, so this time we're finishing up Wave 4. This is the first wave to add a new character, so let's play as Birdo using our standard kart configuration. Next up is the Boomerang Cup. First up is Bangkok Rush from Mario Kart Tour. This makes a much better first impression than Amsterdam because of its overall lighting, and I actually think this might be one of my favorite Tour tracks. I really liked it in Tour because of some unique set pieces, and it has actually made the transition to Mario Kart 8 really gracefully, I think. So right at the beginning, we have a really cool set piece here, where we have these boats in the water. This is definitely the part I remember the most from this track when I played Tour very briefly, admittedly. But like a lot of the other city tracks, I feel like it's very hectic because of the changing layouts. I actually didn't really mention that too much in Amsterdam, but yeah, the city tracks this time I feel like are actually kind of reserved by comparison. Like Berlin, I feel was the most confusing of the Tour tracks in terms of like shifting layouts. While by comparison, I feel like Amsterdam and now Bangkok tend to be a lot more straightforward in terms of how much the layout changes on each lap. But there are still some things to look out for. Again, always keep an eye on the arrows. Again, there are times where even knowing that there are arrows telling me where to go, I'll still end up going the wrong way out of instinct. For example, one of the worst cases for this is Peach Gardens, because it was not a transforming track in DS, so to be fair, there was actually like a backwards version of that track in a mission mode stage. We actually have the crabs again, these we saw earlier actually. I think they're the ones from one of the base game courses. The stairs are blocked off this time. I almost ran straight into that barrier, which would have been bad. Yeah, overall, I really like this course's atmosphere. Again, I've said this numerous times, but I really like sunset levels in video games. I really like this part here, like going through a parking garage. You kind of do that in New York, to be fair, but I imagine that would really suck in 200cc, and we also have to bounce off these, like, little awnings there, which is a nice little set piece. But again, I do feel like Bangkok in general has a lot of really nice like set pieces that make it stand out from, or help it stand out compared to a lot of the other city tracks, which do end up feeling a little bit homogenous at times because of like very similar like locales and like set pieces. But yeah, of the city tracks, this definitely stands out to me. So yeah, so far so good. Next is Mario Circuit from Mario Kart DS. This might be the most polarizing track of this wave, partly because of data mining actually. Without going into specifics, there is a lot of speculation that this might be the last DS track, and there's a lot of disappointment about that, because a lot of people were hoping for Airship Fortress, which is already in Mario Kart Tour, so people thought it would be a shoo-in. So this course kind of blindsided everybody. No one thought this would be the last DS track, potentially. As a track on its own merits, it's fine. I'm realizing how little I remember from Mario Kart DS, to be honest. As much as I enjoyed it, I feel like I almost didn't play it as much, compared to like some of the other games. I actually think 8 is my most played Mario Kart, and it is overall my favorite, and is increasingly becoming more of my favorite because of adding in so many tracks. Like at this point, the sheer quantity of this game is absurd to the point where, yeah, I think it's safe to say this is my favorite Mario Kart. There are a couple things like balance related that I kind of prefer in older titles, but you know, as an overall package, I do think this is probably my favorite Mario Kart. But yeah, I am really realizing how little I remember from this game. Again, I actually remember liking the mission mode quite a bit, but beyond that, once again, we have a blue shell immediately following a red shell, but again, luckily, we're early on enough that hopefully that'll be the last blue shell, and hopefully we'll be able to maintain our lead and actually build up a little bit of distance from second place. The remixes from Mario Kart DS, Waluigi Pinball aside, have been stellar. So yeah, that's another thing I think about a lot with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, is some of the tracks are like, it's kind of just worth it for the music sometimes. We now have a Wiggler running by. We also have Peach's Castle in the background. It feels like we've also had a lot of Mario circuits, so to be fair, this is actually a later one in DS. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that this is one of the latest Mario circuits in Mario Kart, as it shows up around the, like, Star Cup, which is relatively late. Usually Mario circuits end up in, like, the Flower Cup, or Mushroom Cup. But so far, we are maintaining our first place streak. Next is Waluigi Stadium from Mario Kart Double Dash, a fan favorite that also has caused some debate. Some were hoping for Wario Stadium because it would work really well with anti-gravity, though to be fair, I do not understand, or I would not know how that track would work well with Tour mechanics, because of Tour being like essentially like an auto runner. I definitely feel like using tilt controls or touchscreen controls for like Wario Stadium would be a little bit much. I almost feel like a lot of tracks like this end up feeling wider than in the original, and I do wonder how much of it is because these are from Tour. That was an interesting interaction there, careening into that wall. Again, the remix is stellar for this track, though to be fair, Wario Stadium has the same song. We have these little, like, half-pipes. This is, I'm pretty sure, based on, like, the Wii version, that added half-pipes. But we also have some little sections here. We can trick off of here to make it to this upper area, which is really cool. And the one on this side actually has anti-gravity, so let's try this again. I actually don't know if this is particularly faster, to be fair. I think it's a little bit faster because we get this little glide ramp to the finish line. Visually, this is definitely one of the other standout tracks, in my opinion, of this wave. A lot of the lighting looks great. I feel like the dirt texture looks a little flat, to be honest. I kind of wish it would track. Like, you don't leave tracks here, and that's kind of an odd omission. But the lighting does a lot of heavy lifting for the overall aesthetic of this track. Also, I haven't really talked about her, but Birdo, her last mainline appearance, not counting Tour, actually would have been Double Dash. She was Yoshi's partner. In general, I think Birdo is a great addition. Having all the different multiple color options for Birdo is great too, but one annoying thing is they actually changed the notation. So for example, the other characters are Blue Yoshi, Blue Shy Guy, etc, etc. But with Birdo, it's Birdo, parentheses, light blue. So it's the Tour notation for alternate colors. Which is, for someone who is slightly OCD, that's kind of annoying that they changed it. I almost wonder if they might change it back, or change it to be the same for everybody, just because I have seen quite a lot of complaints about that. But Birdo is also unique, from what I've heard at least. She actually has very unique animations, and people weren't expecting that. People were expecting that given that the tracks themselves are lifted from Tour, that the character animations would also be lifted from Tour, but they don't seem to be, which is actually really impressive, that Birdo seems to have unique animations. To be fair, she'd have to have at least some unique animations, because there are no bikes in Tour, as far as I'm aware. There still aren't at this point. I stopped playing Tour a while ago, in all fairness. I got kind of burnt out by the touch controls, to be honest. And yeah, overall that went really smoothly. Waluigi Stadium is always a great track, and it's great to see it back in this version as well. Our final track of Wave 4 is Singapore Speedway, another one of my favorite city tracks. Visually is pretty great, honestly. Some of the buildings do look a little bit flat in the background, but again, like Waluigi Stadium, I feel like the lighting does a lot of heavy lifting for this track. Similar to Bangkok, I do have one criticism, and that's the tour layout that they chose. Basically, my problem with both of these tracks are the coolest part is only in lap 1. So I really like this part here, where you launch up here, and you have this like pool on the side, on the top of this building that you go through. I remember this distinctly from Tour. So yeah, you actually only go through that in lap 1, which is kind of a bummer in my opinion. And similar, like the water part of Bangkok is only at the beginning of lap 1. But beyond that, these are, yeah, probably two of my favorite city tracks in Tour and by proxy, Mario Kart 8. That was really close, actually. I got very nervous, and someone just ran directly into a banana there, so I guess that worked out. Also, the song's pretty solid, too. I keep getting super horns when there's no risk of actual blue shells, which is kind of a shame. I feel like I normally don't get this many super horns, and of course when I do, I can't use them because there aren't any blue shells. So I end up wasting them on a red shell or something else, and then I get hit by a blue shell anyway. So yeah, that's kind of how my Mario Kart luck goes. By the way, one thing worth mentioning is a lot of stats were actually changed in this last update. Basically because of the current meta, a lot of other kart parts and characters had their stats buffed. Basically everyone online for like competitive were playing Waluigi for a long time, so to provide some variety, they did buff a lot of, again, other car parts and characters, which I think is a good choice. To have a little bit more variety of characters chosen. I tend to not care about like the meta, I just kind of play whatever character I want to play. Apparently Rosalina might be one of the top tier characters now, and that just happens to be a case of I play Rosalina and Yoshi a lot, so it works out, but again, I would still play as Rosalina even if she wasn't top tier, just because I like the character from Mario Galaxy. She is one of my favorite Mario characters because of the storybook. But with that being said, we have reached the end of Singapore Speedway. That actually went really smoothly. I almost feel like, compared to like Sydney, the lap 2 of this one is surprisingly short, again, because sometimes the lap 2 parts incorporate so many side paths that it ends up just being a really roundabout way to the finish line, but this actually feels relatively compact by comparison to some of the other city courses. And with that, we've completed the Boomerang Cup. Overall, again, Wave 4 I think is one of the most consistent waves, even though Wave 3 has the really high of 3DS Rainbow Road, and Wave 2 has Waluigi Pinball. I think this might be my favorite overall wave in terms of the consistency of tracks. I do feel like Airship Fortress would have been more interesting than Mario Circuit, but it's still a fun track in its own right. And once again, we got 3 stars, and that takes care of Wave 4. So whenever Wave 4, or whenever Wave 5 releases, we'll go through the next 2 cups. So thank you for watching, and I hope you join me next time for more Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.